Hurrinadoderailsnipembereleventh. Man, what is that? Well, if you take that word and you spread it out, it's actually 5 major events that happened in a very short period of time and impacted thousands of lives. Now imagine if your very first job assignment that you got landed you in that area where those would eventually occur, most of them within the first year that you were there. Well, that actually happened to a couple of Salvation Army officers fresh out of cadet school. Their very first assignment was Prince George County in Maryland, which is in our nation's capital. This is the account of Captains Bill and Jani Criss and their experiences dealing with September 11th, the DC sniper attack, Hurricane Isabel, a major train derailment, and the first reported tornado in that area in over 25 years.
As Salvation Army officers, we were the 2nd Salvation Army unit on site at the Pentagon roughly 2 hours after impact. We could see the plane still sticking out of the side of the wall.
All the traffic was fleeing the town in that area, and we were driving to it.
That for me was the first spiritually significant moment when I realized that our role is, when something happens like that, we're the ones who are going towards it, towards the people that are impacted. So my job for that whole first day was simply to go out and fill my van up as high as I could fill it with ice or water or supplies and bring those back in, because I was the only source of supplies until they could get enough room to bring tractor trailers in. 2 weeks later, a tornado goes through the DC area. Didn't even make it on most newspapers, but 3 people in our county were killed. And we stayed up all night that night serving the people that were affected by the tornado. It involved the University of Maryland, and the chief of police for the University of Maryland came up to me at one point and said, in 25 years that I've been chief of police here, we've never had anything like this happen. But he said, but when it did, the Salvation Army was here.
In that first year of being an officer, we also had a train derail in Montgomery County, which is the next county over. We were thankful that we had a good core group at our corps that could, at a moment's notice, step up to the plate.
What became known as the DC sniper was in our own backyard.
That was our daughter's school.
The teenage boy that was shot at.
I'm trying to comfort my daughter who had a schoolmate shot, and she couldn't sleep. She just whimpered and cried because it was so psychologically straining to her.
One of our corps members was approached by Williams, the sniper, asking directions to a school, and she didn't know at the time who it was, but she came to me and asked me if she needed to report it because this strange man had asked her directions. The next day he shot a bus driver, and where the bus driver was shot was right outside the school that she'd given him directions to. So we had to, provide pastoral care to someone who really kind of felt responsible for what had happened there.
Huge waves continue to come in here as this surge makes its way up onto the beach.
And then we also then had a Hurricane Isabel. Came up into the Tidewater area and into DC. We were involved in feeding 10,000 people a day. One thing after another happened our first year or so that we were as officers, and it seemed like we were always in disaster mode, and that saps your resources. When you get to that point, God is true and faithful to His word that He's the resources we need.
We have to stay strong at all times to be able to help at a moment's notice. Even when I would just be, stretched kind of tight as a rubber band, they would know that they could ask me anything, and whatever I was doing, I would be their ear, their hug that was needed at that time.
What we're doing is simply we're following God. When a disaster hits and everybody else is going the other way, God is the one who's coming in to the middle of that situation. He's there maybe in the form of a Salvation Army officer or a Salvation Army volunteer, but He's there to put an arm around the person who just lost their house. He's there to celebrate with the one whose house was spared. I've quit calling things acts of God They're things that happen and they're part of life. The act of God is the cup of cold water or the meal.
Now, the Crisses are our Corps officers at our 614 here in downtown Birmingham. Now, we all hope that this is a much quieter assignment while they're here. But we do want to thank all the officers, volunteers, and personnel for all that they do in emergency situations. They're normally the first ones to get there and the last ones to leave, and we thank them very much.